Welcome to Tita Talks. My name is Sonia Tita Puopolo, and I'm your host. I am so grateful today to welcome Vittoria Frua De Angeli. Vittoria is a coach, body intelligence facilitator, and author whose work brings together the body, personal growth, leadership, well-being, and practical tools for everyday life. Vittoria, what I love most about your work is the way that you translate deep wisdom into simple, accessible practices that help people reconnect with their bodies, build resilience, and support sleep and recovery, and live with greater intention. Today, we will explore body-based self-care, leadership, resilience, purpose, human-centered AI, and the small daily practices that can help each of us flourish. Ciao, Vittoria. Thank you so much for being here today, and welcome to Tita Talks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Vittoria, to begin, can you share a little bit about your journey from the corporate world and your earlier path into yoga, coaching, body intelligence facilitation, leadership development, and well-being?
Absolutely. So I studied law, and despite various other career paths, at some point I found myself working as a lawyer in a large investment bank. My yoga practice predated that. I started practicing yoga in about 1999. By the time I joined the bank, it was about 2005. So I had quite a few years of yoga under my belt. But the pressures of the job at some point took precedence over my yoga practice. And within very short shrift, I realized that my ability to cope with all my stresses of the job kind of totally tanked. Which in some respects was probably to my benefit because I'm not sure the job was a perfect fit. And so I ended up leaving the job, which for anyone who's listening to the podcast who is old enough will, appreciate. That was in January 2028, and I was at Lehman Brothers, and 8 months later, Lehman sort of crashed. And so I was lucky to get out before things got really hairy. And at some point, I wanted to deepen my yoga practice before I went back to sort of a 9-to-5 job. And when I went to look for ways to do that, the only way to do that effectively was to do a yoga teacher training. And so I came back from this teacher training just so invigorated and inspired and sort of empowered by how amazing this practice was that instead of going back to a 9-to-5, I started teaching yoga. But along the way, I met different teachers. I met different approaches to how to move in the body and how to be in the body. And so the path evolved to being more about how to listen to the body, which is why I consider myself a body intelligence facilitator. And then in some respects, all of the skills that I was learning through yoga were how do I support myself? How do I allow people to sort of thrive? And coaching was kind of the last ingredient, as it were, because it allows me to help people on directed goals, sort of bringing all of that wealth of experience from the body, from movement, from listening to the body. In such a way that it can be applied, in a tailor-made way for people. And for me, it was just the next step in a path of, if I'm looking for my own self growth, as well as, how do I get to know myself better? I'm an eternal student. And so the idea of being in education and seeing what comes next is always fascinating to me.
That's wonderful. I love that. Your work makes mind-body practices feel simple and accessible. Why was it important for you to translate traditional practices into tools that people can use anywhere?
I laugh because I think part of the answer is frustration. In the many years that I was teaching yoga, there were just so many people who were interested in the results or the impact that yoga was having, but were put off by the practice itself. There was this idea that it was,
Yeah.
and interestingly, I just made a post about this, but people will either think it's too athletic, or they need to be or they're not flexible enough to do it, or, oh, the practice is too culty, like blah, blah, blah. Like everyone has
Hmm.
whatever like list of reasons yoga was not the thing for them. And so the
Wow.
frustration of realizing that there were so many tools and so many things that could benefit people, but realizing that so many people would never cross the threshold into a yoga studio.
Mm.
How do I slowly make these instruments accessible?
It's
And
wonderful.
my own experience of, two things. One is when I was at
Mm.
Lehman Brothers, there were moments where it was really hard to carve out the time for an
Yes.
hour and a half to then go put on leggings, to then cross
Yes.
London, to then, do a practice.
Mm.
And realizing that there were moments where when I didn't have time to do that, it didn't mean that I didn't want the benefits of
Right. Yeah,
of
yeah.
practice. And also that, my
Yeah.
own experience as I met different teachers within my yoga trajectory, that there were extraordinarily small, subtle practices that somehow made bigger impacts than some of like the
Oh,
large performative, acrobatic, astonishing looking things that, our bodies can do. And
yes.
so, you know, in order to get away from the fact that you can confuse the acrobatics for the yoga and
Yes.
do this sort of maxim, which I learned from one of my teachers, which totally tracked with my experience, which was less is more. And so if we're
Yes.
hoping to bring more people into the conversation, then
Mm.
in order to do that, we need to address a lot of the barriers that people are coming up against. And,
Mm.
you know, the
Mm.
like so the way unfortunately yoga is being
Yeah.
offered, because that's how I got into it. But unfortunately, a class setting is a very difficult um, container in
Right.
order to address everyone's needs.
Yeah, completely. Absolutely. And this is perfect to my next question, actually. Many people think of self-care as something external. How do
Mm.
you define body-based self-care, and why is the body so central to well-being?
Mm. So I think you're right. I think a lot of people assume that self-care is like, oh, I go to the spa, or I get a nice
Yeah,
massage, or
the
I'm
bubble
taking,
bath.
but it's something that someone else is doing for me in some respects and to me.
Yeah,
And don't get me
totally.
wrong, not a bubble bath, but certainly like a particular bath is one of my favorite go-to tools. So
Oh, oh
we
yes,
can
mine
talk
too.
about
I
that
didn't mean
later.
to. Yeah, 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 mine too, mine too.
Um, but but I think that a lot of the tools that we are
It's a tool.
often aware of
Yeah,
are, oh, you need to meditate, or you need to journal, or you need to whatever. And I'm,
yeah,
a supremely analytic person, and
yes,
mind was constantly buzzing. And while that isn't a reason not to do any of those things, it often
yes.
felt like it created more of a anxiety as opposed to addressing it. And so
Oh,
for
okay.
me, the body was instrumental. And the more I studied the body, the more I realized why is that we tend to do things the way we were educated was you choose to do something and then your body executes. That's also the way people approach yoga. There is a pose
Mm,
to be done in a particular way. Here are the
yes,
parameters. Can you fit into
right,
this quote unquote box? Um,
right.
the reality is that our
Mm,
body is making so many decisions for us, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Like our nervous system is such a huge part of how we
totally.
navigate the world. Our nervous system is constantly adapting, and that unless
Yes,
we're bringing the nervous system into the conversation, which
absolutely.
travels through the body, that there is,
It's true.
you know, it's very hard to take care of yourself unless you are actually, I guess the analogy that comes to mind is the external stuff is helpful, but it would be like giving your car a new paint job when there's a problem in the motor. And
Oh, absolutely.
so
Yes, yes,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
well, how do I
yeah.
get into the mechanics of it? And so
Right.
for me, the body absolutely needs to move. Like we are creatures that require movement in order to be healthy.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
the body needs to be part of that part of the equation.
Mm.
So whether you call it exercise or whether you call it yoga or whatever movement modality you want to move into, whether it's paddle or, parkour, take
Yes.
the pick. But I think
Right.
what's often left out in the self-care conversation is my body is constantly sending me messages.
Absolutely.
We are very
Yes.
often like either
Totally.
trying to hide them or pretend
Yes.
they're not there or think that they're
Totally.
not an important part of the equation. You know,
Right.
recently
Yeah.
people are, oh, emotions are an important part of decision making. I'm like, yes,
Mm.
and so for me, the self-care is far more, in terms of a definition, is how can I
Totally.
listen to my body,
Yes.
to be in
Absolutely.
dialogue with it for something
Yes.
as basic. I don't know about the States, but here in Europe, we're going through a heat wave. I'm just like, if you cannot hear your body's signals for hydration, then
Yes.
everything else is going to go off the rails. Um,
Completely.
and sometimes our signals are not as clear as, oh, I'm thirsty. They might be more subtle. And so how can we
Absolutely.
then learn to uh,
Listen.
yeah, listen,
Right.
but then also dialogue, which is twofold, is how do I dialogue internally? Like how am I
Totally.
addressing whatever it is that my body's saying to me internally? But then that
Yes.
also has an external impact because self-care might
Totally.
also be, I'm going to stop engaging in conversations that are not nutritious to me, or I'm not going
Yes.
to take on stuff that I realize consistently drains me. So
Absolutely.
it's kind of how do I listen inwardly? How do I respond to myself inwardly? Because very often we're not even acknowledging what we are saying.
Completely.
And then how does that manifest as a behavior that makes sure that I am respecting myself and then obviously respecting the other people that I'm in that conversation with?
Yes, completely. And it takes time. It's a process, right? It's a
It takes
process.
time, and part of me wishes that we'd learned this as kids because I think kids
Yes.
are very embodied. And
Yes.
then we kind of teach them implicitly or not maliciously to ignore that stuff, you know,
Right. Yeah.
and that
Yeah,
there's
it's
other
true.
things that are more important. And
Right.
I think it's about reclaiming one of my teachers when I was doing a
Yeah.
diploma in nutrition, which is another sort of spoke that I have in my wheel, sort of said like one of the greatest deficits is that we have been told that our greatest authority lies outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You go to a librarian or you ask a
Yeah,
teacher,
you
or you ask a professor or you ask a doctor, whereas the reality is that we need to get back to realizing that our
absolutely.
greatest sort of teacher, whether it's self-care or otherwise, is actually being in touch with ourselves and respecting what it is that we need.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What does human flourishing mean to you?
So for me, it's not a one-man job. I think the
Yes,
importance for all of us to look
I
after
agree.
ourselves individually is so that we can then, engage in a world more 360. I
Absolutely.
I think this is a stretch for people, but for me, it is paramount. I'm like, if we all feel good within ourselves, then
Yes.
our need to overconsume, over purchase, over
Over every, yeah,
everything
totally.
would totally shrink. And
Yeah.
therefore, I absolutely see that, our flourishing means that the world is flourishing from a climate perspective. But equally, that we as humans will live better if our world is better off.
Mm.
And I don't know if you're familiar with a concept called Ubuntu. Uh,
Oh, I love that. Yes, share that. I love,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So Ubuntu is this idea that I am because we are, and that therefore my well-being, and I'm totally butchering it, there are many African languages who use this word and it has slightly different meanings, but it is this
Right.
idea that well-being is a collective thing, that
Yes,
sort of my
it
flourishing
is.
is dependent on the people around me flourishing. Um,
Yes.
And, my newsletter on Substack is called Ripples of Movement. This idea that like
Beautiful.
single one of our actions creates a ripple effect. It can be hopefully a positive ripple effect, or it can be a
Yeah.
negative ripple effect. And
Yes.
yeah, and I don't know if you have ever practiced yoga or other movement modality, but uh, my experience, as well as something that a lot of people have shared, whether it's a coaching session, whether it's a massage to go, no discredit to massages. They are awesome instruments. Let's use them. Our body
Oh,
benefits.
absolutely.
Or the
Yes.
yoga class, the way that you then walk back out into your world shifts dramatically. So something
Completely.
that totally would have like pissed you off, excuse my French, a second ago happens after one of the interventions or tools, and all of a sudden it's like water off a duck's back. And
Yes. Yes. I
all
practice yoga every day. Yep.
yeah, and if we
Yep.
all navigated the world with that ability to sort of not let people walk all over us, but equally not take everything personally, I think
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
would
You never know what
be at
someone's going
ease with
through.
flourishing individually, but then the people around us would be able to flourish more, and we'd get to a place where, you know, I'm a
Yes.
big unicorn that way. I'm like, why do you do what you do? I'm hoping to change the world.
I love it. How do you help people reconnect with the body when they are stressed, burnt out, or disconnected?
I mean, every person will require something different, and each of those situations that you've mentioned will probably also require something slightly different. Um,
Yes.
it can be something as simple as orienting to the space around you and tapping into your own senses. Like,
Yes.
okay, like my mind is going crazy. Great. Can I mention three blue things in the room around me? Or
Yes.
can I feel
Shift
where
their
my
attention.
butt is sitting on the chair? Or, what am I smelling? What am I tasting? What am I touching? Sort of tapping into our senses that way. It can
Yes.
be something a little bit more active. One of the very easy things that you can do to regulate your nervous system, the vagus nerve loves rhythm, is to jump up and down. So
Oh,
it is
yeah. Just
a very
moving.
easy
Yeah.
way to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
get back into your body.
Mm.
Um, if you are burnt out, that is a situation that you arrive at, unfortunately, after a long process. And so
Yes.
it might be very delicate interventions and for
Mm.
people who are dissociated, similarly, getting back in touch can be really scary. You know,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
they've closed off all of this stuff because
So true.
you know, because feeling anything
Oh,
is
yeah.
overwhelming. And
Yeah.
so, what are small things that you can do? And maybe something as
Mm.
simple as, can we go for a walk? Maybe something as
Yes.
simple as,
Love that.
what were you doing at a time when things felt good? And then using that as inspiration for whatever tool might be useful to them. Uh,
Yes. Mm, I love that.
One of the people who came on my sleep course at some point, I was like, well, what do you do for fun? And she was just like, dance. And I'm like,
That's such a great question. I love that.
and all of a sudden, the moment she made dance a more regular part of her day to day, all of a
Oh,
sudden she was sleeping well, you know. So it can really be
brilliant.
anything, and it is also very, very subjective.
Mm, mm. I love the idea of the 5 minutes of me. What
Mhm.
inspired it? How can 5 minutes help someone return to themselves during a very busy day?
So I alluded to it a bit before. There was a moment in my work where I realized that I didn't have time for a long,
Yes.
1.5 hour practice.
Right, right.
Um, Also, the fact that there are a lot of people who could benefit from yoga inspired practices, but we're not coming to classes. And
Right,
also
right.
awareness that there was this fascinating research that was done specifically on stress,
Yeah.
and yoga increasing the presence of GABA, And GABA is something that like the brain sprinkles, as it were, when we are stressed as a way to be like, no, 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 calm down, it's all good.
Yes.
And so yoga had the impact of increasing GABA. Well,
Mm.
when they went back and did a further study, they said, okay, well, do people who practice yoga have a consistently higher level of GABA? And the answer was no. Their GABA increases on the back of a practice. And so what ends up being important is not the duration of the practice, but the frequency. We think 5 minutes is an insignificant amount of time. It's a huge amount of time. If anyone says
Yes.
down to meditate, 5 minutes feels like an enormity.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. And so
Yeah.
if you want to, we can maybe do something very
Let's
brief.
do. I love it. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. Love it.
So if you're sitting on a chair, you're going to come sit on the front edge of your chair so you can feel both feet resting on the floor. I'm going to take off my
Okay.
glasses. And what I
Yeah.
want you to do is notice where the hips are and see if you can curl your tailbone up so that your chin eventually rolls towards your chest. And then you're going to tilt the tailbone back so that slowly the movement in the hips creates a movement that expands the spine and allows the spine to grow all long and tall. And you're going to do this
Okay.
3 times. So tilt the tailbone up in between your legs, and that sort of curls you and rounds you forward. And then
Okay.
you're going to imagine you have a tail and twirl the tailbone behind you, and allow that to extend the spine up to the top. And just,
Oh, I love that.
how the mood changes as the posture changes. And maybe you're
Yes.
noticing
So wonderful.
that the breath shifts. And maybe you're noticing that you're breathing a particular way as the spine extends upwards, and maybe breathing a different way as you're curling back in through the spine. And the next time you find yourself in an extended position, just sort of stop there for a second. And if you want to, you can clasp your hands in front of you and pull the hands apart. So you're exerting a lot of effort, but nothing's actually moving. Just take a few seconds to sort of breathe there. And then whenever it feels like you've had enough, then allow the hands to come back down.
Oh, that's a wonderful reset.